Hey team, so today we're continuing on talking about goal setting, and this time we're focusing on where do I start. Someone asked me today in my gym, what do I do? How do I start? I've got all these plans, I don't know where I'm going. The easiest answer I have to that is just start by changing one thing. Only one thing. And don't worry about changing the whole thing, because that's when it becomes overwhelming. So I've said before, one thing at a time. It then breaks it down into chunks that's manageable. It breaks it down into chunks that are achievable. We're looking at, in terms of the concept of work smarter, not harder, try and make it that your goals are tailored to what you want to do. So starting with a SMART goal, making sure it's measurable, all of those through the SMART acronym. But importantly, it's about making a start. So don't worry too much. If you find that your life is pretty much sat on a sofa, sat at work, sat in your car, if you find that your lifestyle is generally sedentary, which basically means that you're quite inactive, again, not a negative, but you've then got something to aim for. And that thing you're aiming for is an activity level or an increase on where you are before. So always remember, and I refer to them as little victories, anything that you do that's a positive and turning away from where you are, if you find that where you are, the position you are now is deemed, let's call it the negative, is a step towards your happy place. So change one thing. Add a little walk into your day that you might not have done before. How long should you walk for? If you went for a 10-minute walk that you weren't doing before, happy daydreams. That's a bonus, that's a plus, that's a positive, that's a little victory. So always focus on one thing at a time so it doesn't overwhelm you, but focus on making yourself proud of what you've achieved, no matter how small it may seem compared to someone else's goals. Focusing on yourself. This is where you're allowed to be that little bit selfish. And I say to people, this is your goal. Or when I train with my clients, I refer to them as our goals. So I invest myself in wanting them to achieve their goal, but ultimately, if they don't feel they're achieving, then I'm not achieving. So it's good to sometimes buddy up, or if you do have a trainer, really make them invest properly in your goal so that it means the same to them as it does to you, and you're not just a number. But want it, change it, make it happen. That one walk might not seem like a lot. If you find, I used this with a client of mine, that they were eating a pack of biscuits every day. This might sound extreme to you if you don't, but to them it was normal. We accept that. So I said, how about you don't eat a pack every day? You have one day a week where you're not going to eat a pack of biscuits. Now, I love biscuits, so I completely sympathize. I know how hard it can be to give up those biscuits. So if you say to yourself, I'm not going to eat those biscuits on one day of the week, you'll be surprised how the body will adjust, adapt, and change just in that one day. Then you conquer that day. Little victory, you're winning, it's a positive. You then focus on the next day and you say to yourself, okay, I've progressed with that. I might have done that successfully for a week. Look at your week and say, okay, how about we push the boat out and say, I'm not going to eat biscuits on 2 of those days. If you can manage that and sustainably manage that, you're winning. And this is how we progress. I always encourage small changes so that you can manage it, you can succeed with it. And it's one of those that, again, gives you that motivation to keep going. If you start to change too much too soon, again, as I've said, you'll become overwhelmed. You'll then lose heart, you'll lose track, and before you know it, you're up to 2 packs of biscuits a day. So you want to make sure you keep it relevant to your goal and do it, like I said, in those baby steps. Don't stress yourself out about having to join a running club, particularly if you don't like running. Just do a lap of your block. That's one lap that you weren't doing before. If you're saying to me that you don't have time, but you get a 30-minute lunch break, how about for 5 minutes of that lunch break, you say to yourself, right, I'm going to do 20 extra steps. That's 20 steps you weren't doing before. So always try and say to yourself, right, let's do that little bit more than I had done before until you find that comfortable level of this can now be maintained, this can be sustained, this is going to impact and change my life. Fitness and health, remember, focus on those. Don't get too het up by the numbers, as we explained before. Don't get too blinded by what the scales or the charts or the demographic, regional, national reports say. Just focus on one day at a time, one little change at a time, and you'll be surprised at how quickly those benefits will start to come, how good you'll start to feel, And then in time, as you progress through those changes, you'll see those physical changes as well, if that's one of your goals. But again, don't overwhelm yourself. Change one thing at a time. Get comfortable with that change before implementing more change. Remember, the more you try and do it one time, the less likely you will stick at it, or the less likely you'll see the benefits from it. So again, keep it sustainable, keep it manageable, and keep it relevant to yourself. Keep your questions coming, and I'll see you next time.